Hey guys, I'm finally back. Got my new computer, so had a chance to go back to the project after over a month and start looking at what was missing, what bugs I needed to fix, and actually made a little bit of progress last night. So I just wanted to show you what I have, and hopefully updates are gonna keep coming now more regularly. As I am eager to just get this done. I'm almost there. I just have a few more things to iron out, and then I have to clean up the code. So one of the things that I had before was on the AI I had two separate states, and you can see if I'm selecting here the enemy spawner. I'm gonna go to the setup here. You can see that there are two very different values: player sensing distance and combat range. And that basically means that if the player is within 50,000 units, it'll be basically sensed by the AI. Anything that was farther than that, the AI would just not engage at all. So it's kind of a binary check. If you are within range, the sensing range, 50,000 units, the AI would just not know that the player is there and it would just do its basically idle behavior. And idle behavior could be literally standing still or moving to a random location in a volume or following a spline as a patrol. Or if you were within the sensing distance, then it would check the combat range, and if you were within the combat range, then it would actually use the combat or engage behavior that you can see here. In this case, I have this as ignore, but you could have it as just chase, chase and shoot, shoot in place, etc. Now the problem with that is that if you're really, really far, you're gonna be outside of the sensing range. Your AI is still going about doing its idle behavior, even if you don't see it, right? So if you have a really big level and if you have enemies that are really, really far away, you're really, really far, but the AI is still doing its thing. It's still doing its idle behavior. Um, so in this case, it would just be flying around randomly. Now that's okay, but it starts giving issues with performance when you have a bunch of AI and the AI is nowhere near the player. So what I did is I actually reworked this to have even a third state. So right now you're looking at the search for player function here, event, and it's looking for whether it's within the sensing distance or not. If it isn't within the sensing distance, then it says, okay, well, it's too far. It's not within the distance. Now it's saying, well, what about the idle factor? So now I'm saying you're too far. However, are you within the idle factor? And the idle factor, you can see here, I have it selected, is about 20% more. So basically, whatever the sensing distance you have, if you are within, in this case, 20% farther than the sensing distance, uh, then it'll just completely be inactive. And you can see that there's a new state here saying inactive. And you can change this factor to whatever you want, right? You can make it 2, which is 200%, or 100% more. So if it's 50,000 units, and it'll be 100,000 units, and you can adjust that value for performance, right? In this case, I have it. If you're 20% more than that sensing behavior, if you're farther than 20% more, then you're gonna go straight up to inactive. And I have a little debug screen here, so let's just go ahead and do this, just so you can see what I'm talking about. So if I'm really, really far, I'm gonna come all the way here and I click play. You can see here, I'm gonna eject. You can see here on the left-hand corner that the AI is actually inactive. Um, and now, because my ship is a little bit closer, now we went to idle behavior and it started being active as I'm getting closer and closer. Let me just possess. So again, this makes a huge difference if you have a bunch of AI that you can't even see. So again, you start really, really far, and you can see on the left-hand corner you're straight up inactive. And as soon as you hit that 50,000 unit range, it goes into idle behavior, which means it's active. And then when you get even closer, you can see now that it's in the engaged behavior. So in this case, the engaged behavior is ignore the player, but if it was, chase and shoot or whatever, then it will start chasing you. So that's one cool thing that I've added. I think it makes a huge difference for performance. Again, I'm thinking about a level that has going to have a couple of hundred enemies all over the place. You don't want the AI to just be moving around if the player's nowhere near close to it. Another cool thing I've added, which is still experimental, honestly, I don't know if I want to include it, is right now, if you kill the mesh, I'm just going to click play here. I have it only with 2 hit points. As soon as it's destroyed, it kind of goes away, explodes, and it gives you, in this case, the laser pickup. I have an option now to destroy the mesh, and you can see it here. You can do it on the enemy spawner, or you can do it in the specific class itself. And what that does is it actually uses a destructible mesh. So instead of just going down and exploding, you actually get the mesh destroyed. So if I click play here, I'm gonna hit it once, hit it twice. Whoops. There you go. You can see that now it's using a destructible mesh. And you can specify for how long the mesh will be available in the level, and then it'll just destroy itself. I found that some of this stuff, if you do a lot of it, can be buggy. I don't know if it's my code or not, but I've just found that if you have a lot of destruction, the physics engine can get a little wonky here. So, but it's an option, right? I personally wouldn't use it, especially if I have a lot of enemies, or I'll be selective. Maybe you can do it for a boss, but not for every single enemy. But the option is there, and I thought it was cool, right? So now you have the option of having your entire enemy, all of your enemies be destructible, or you can just have the typical behavior, which is they just explode, but you don't have the actual mesh fracture. And on that same vein here, I did another level just for stress testing right here. And this has, you can see, a bunch of enemy spawners here. Actually, I have 300 enemy spawners here. Just to test out if, how much of a difference it was going to make. So if I'm really, really far here and I click play, I'm gonna go and do stat unit and stat FPS. You can see that right now, because I'm really, really far, all of these enemies, 300 enemies, are just completely idle. They're there, but because I'm so far away, they're just standing there. Now look at what happens again when I get a little bit closer. So if I just click play here, look at my frame rate. I'm about 80 frames per second. And if I just get a little bit closer, now you see that a lot of the enemies start to move. Because I am now within that 50,000 unit range. And by the way, I have their engaged behavior as ignore because I don't want to get completely destroyed here. But you can see the ones really, really far away are still completely inactive, idle. And the ones that are closer are now reacting. So obviously, depending on your game, this is an extreme case. I wouldn't recommend you having 300 enemies, especially if they're going to be attacking you in the same scene, drawing at the same time. But again, for performance reasons, you can switch and you can change that value to pretty much anything you want. I have it at 50,000, but if you're targeting higher end PCs, then maybe you can make that a little bit smaller. If you want to have more performance reasons and your level's not as open, then you can obviously make that smaller. But again, if I didn't have this option, all of these enemies would just be idling, no matter the distance. So I think that's a quite significant change. And I'm going to continue working on this project because I know it's been a long time. I do want to finish it. And now that I have my new machine, I think I can finally work without Unreal crashing on me every 20 minutes or so. Cool. So that's all I have for now. Hopefully you're still hanging in there. It is coming. I just need to now look at what's left and work out some of the bugs, and hopefully this will be out fairly soon. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you later. Thanks a lot.